reflect and better understand how my previous statements lack clarity in expressing my stance against recent insensitive public remarks and actions. Pause. What he's referring to then is Jaylen Brown originally was saying he's gonna stick with Donda Sports after we're seeing all this stuff. Then he said, maybe not. Maybe, I'm not sure which interview he saw to finally make his decision. Anyway, he continued, and in this, I seek to be as clear as possible. I have always and will always continue to stand strongly against any anti-Semitism, hate speech, misrepresentation, and oppressive rhetoric of any kind. He went on and said he's gonna detach himself from them as well. One more letter, Sharon. They liked writing letters yesterday. This is something I didn't even know. So maybe you were ahead of this than me on this. I wasn't paying that much close of attention to Donda Sports, and specifically Antonio Brown, also a former NFL player who apparently is the president. I didn't know that. He put out an official statement. I'll read only a part about this. He says, over the past few weeks, the world's reactionary and selective outrage at comments in the media made by my brother Ye have inflamed and sparked rampant conversation and reflection. I too have been able to reflect on statements that I and others in my circle have made that lack clarity in expressing my stance. AB has been all over the place. He's been in controversies with Tom Brady, with exposing himself in a pool to someone, and then also ending his career virtually in NFL. All these energies and opinions and thoughts and statements all come together, but he's basically saying he doesn't want to live in a society that's gonna be judging me when I have different thoughts and points of views. I guess you don't have to have too much more work to do that because people are detaching and running away like crazy from this entire situation. What's your thoughts here?
Well, yeah, I don't know who he's gonna have left to talk to. But perhaps Kanye, who probably said, hey, listen, you better get out there and support me. But I'm really tired too of the statements, the written statements. If I don't believe that the filth that Kanye is spewing is right, relevant, whatever, I don't know why I can't just stand before the cameras. I don't know why I can't just say it to his face. I think that some of these people who have benefited from that relationship need to come out with it. I remember Damon John, I was reading an article about how he confronted Russell Simmons when all those accusations were about him. They're friends. He considers him a dear friend and a mentor, but he said, I have to take you out of my book. You're not gonna get this chapter anymore because it's just not the right thing. Nobody was calling on him to do that. He just did it and he faced him head on. And that could go a long way with some of these people.
So you're saying like the statements being made is a little too cold? Just go to the guy and be like, listen.
I want to see you. I want to see your eyeballs. I want to hear your inflection. We're seeing people sitting down for interviews when they signed with Donda Sports. They were all too happy to be next to Kanye West. Now that he's imploded, why not say, listen, this is not what I signed up for. I don't agree, and tell me exactly what you don't agree with. That's my only point.
They're making
the statements were fine. Okay.
They make it a very delicate situation because they're then concerned about, hey, if this one word is off in my statement or in my conversation, maybe I could still get like, people are gonna hate me, my marketing team. Because again, the reason why athletes may sign on to Donda is they're looking to then expand their basically the LeBron effect. We see LeBron on movies now with Space Jam on every commercial. And we see a lot of athletes on commercials and things like that. But this is like then leading to post-playing career type of endeavors. And you don't want to screw that up because the money still has to flow. So these are the concerns that come, and which actually, I'm curious what you think about this, because this crosses my mind a lot. It's saying Ye's first dive into stupidity and insanity, right? This is him on the next stage, which now has gotten enough attention that across the board, people are bailing on him. I don't like the characterization that black folks didn't care that he was talking about how slavery was a choice. And then partnering up with Candace Owens even before all this and starting to spew some of the things that she was saying. But it is true that after he was saying that stuff, these two did sign with Donda Sports. And now when the heat is to this degree, maybe it's seen more as a societal pushback on him rather than you just don't like the things that he's been doing and saying you don't want to associate yourself with it.
I think you're absolutely right. That's exactly what they did. And by the way, if you want to be cold and calculating and kind of see which way the wind blows and kind of couch your bets, probably mixing up a bunch of different metaphors there. Then listen, they put out the statements because of the pressure. So the same people who want to see them distance themselves, maybe people who are out there who might say, okay, I like that guy, I'll give you another opportunity. I have something for you. But I don't think these statements go far enough when Kanye has literally literally imploded all over the place.
And I think he knows that it's why there's those he prefaces some of these statements with, "This may be anti-Semitic." Bro, you said to say that before you say it.
Did he say that? Yeah.
He goes, "I can say," that's what it's, "I can say anti-Semitic things."
And Adidas can't drop me.
Well, you know that's what it is. It is what it is. You just admitted it yourself. One more last thing. Let's go to the graphic 8. I just want to point out one thing, because again, he brought on these 2 athletes onto the roster. Big deal. Lastly, this is what the state of Donda Sports. They start off hot with these 2 huge names in their respective sports. Now, the organization has 0 clients on its athletic roster. I don't think they're getting the others. If they do, those folks are gonna have to deal with the hot water as well. Is where it stands. We'll see. I've said it yesterday. We'll see the support that Candace Owens and all these folks give him after the folks who supported him through all the rest of his controversies, he's now finally completely flipped on. You'll find out how much they care about him real soon. That does it for this edition of the Watch List. Sharon Reed, thank you for joining me. TYT contributor, you can catch her on all the shows. Can't wait to have you back on. I'm sure you're gonna catch her on everything. You have things planned out already, I'm sure, so I'm not gonna spoil it for everyone.
No, I love it. I appreciate you having me on. And where can I catch that couple? They were just fantastic.
we got to go back and find the name of that show. I'm having them on next week.
Yeah, please do. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you guys for being with us. Up next, John Iadarola with the Damage Report. Go check him out. We'll see you guys tomorrow on the Watch List.
Prepare yourself. It's Big News Wednesday. not just Big News Wednesday with Jayar Jackson. Jayar, very glad to have you here. Thank you.
What's going on, John? How you feel? How you feeling
much
today?
No, I'm good. I'm glad to have you here. I know that you're rested, fresh, and raring to go because you had at least like a 4-minute break, right?
Since well, yeah, and also I slept an entirety of 5 hours too. That's like record breaking for me, bro.
Yeah, that's not bad actually. I like it. Yeah. Thank you, Spectrophonic. I see you. So today is Big News Wednesday. That's true. They all are. But it's also big potential breaking news Wednesday because we'll talk about it in a little bit. I don't know if the press conference is going to happen, but let's just say that Herschel Walker might not, in fact, have encouraged one woman to have an abortion. It turns out that might not be true.
So what you're saying is zero, because right?
You might think so. It turns out there's another option beyond 1 or 0. So anyway, we're gonna talk about that big news that'll have no effect whatsoever on anything.
Right.
And that'll be coming up soon. But anyway, we got a lot more to talk about. I hear there was a debate in Pennsylvania. I don't know anything about it, but we're gonna look into it and see what we can figure out. Let's see. The legal advice that Trump is being given. So we have 2 versions of it we're gonna talk about. The one that's happening on TV and the one that's happening behind the scenes. There's a bit of a gap between those 2 things too, and I find it hilarious. Marjorie Greene has been swatted, which is no laughing matter. We're gonna talk about that too. And then in the aftermath, if you're watching the full show, Dave Levinthal, one of the biggest friends of the show, will be joining us to break down how politicians' financial disclosures can reveal incredibly personal information about them that they may not know that they're revealing. So that's gonna be spicy and fascinating as well. Oh, also, Ben Shapiro, complete hack, will reveal the most recent evidence of that to close out our show. But in advance of all of that, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button and sharing the stream, that'd be great. And if you wanna send us any comments, tweets, or super chats, we will respond as we go. But with all that said, and me having half of an eye on Twitter to see when this press conference begins, Jayar, are you ready to start the show?
I'm ready for the press conference.
Okay.
But we'll do this.
In that case, let's just wait. Refresh and refresh. No, we're gonna talk about some news and we'll eventually get to it. So why don't we start off with this? Last night was the big John Fetterman, Dr. Oz debate for the Senate race in Pennsylvania. And didn't go exactly as Fetterman or his supporters might have wanted, but Dr. Oz also made a number of significant stumbles. So we're gonna dive into all of that. But first, we all knew that John Fetterman, still in recovery from his stroke, was going to have some difficulty, and he attempted to prepare us for that right off the bat. Here he is.
And let's also talk about the elephant in the room. I had a stroke. He's never let me forget that. And I might miss some words during this debate, mush 2 words together, but it knocked me down, but I'm gonna keep coming back up. And this campaign is all about, to me, is about fighting for everyone in Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down, that needs to get back up.
Okay, so that is him attempting to explain his health situation as well as manage expectations. And you can probably hear even in that he was having a little bit of trouble at times. Now, there were periods that were a lot worse where he was having difficulty expressing his thoughts or slightly changing words from perhaps what he intended to say, but he laid out there what everybody already knows. He had a stroke just a few months ago. He has auditory processing issues. His brain functions, he has no cognitive deficits, but he has difficulty in hearing and sometimes speaking, so turning thoughts into words. And of course, that is going to be turned into something far more nefarious. Now, Dr. Oz on stage is gonna mostly try to pretend that he hasn't been a complete a-hole throughout this campaign. He's not going to actually to Fetterman's face mock him or question his cognitive abilities. That's for campaign ads and surrogates and all that. But the surrogates were doing that literally as the debate was going on. Stephen Miller, one of the most grotesque snake-human hybrids operating on Earth right now, tweeted in advance of the debate, "Get ready to watch Fetterman deliver a performance for the ages." As the first ever Senate candidate to receive clandestine video messages during the entirety of the debate, crime fetishist Fetterman should be expected to display nothing short of rhetorical genius. And he goes on to say that anything less than a 10 out of 10 from John Fetterman is a giant fail. Now, what you need to understand about that is he doesn't believe any of that or mean any of that. He, like most people talking about politics on Twitter, has no respect whatsoever for the people who follow him. And I really want to focus on that. I don't mean that he doesn't respect like lefties like me. I don't care what he says, and he doesn't care what I care what he says. He doesn't have respect for the people who follow him, who look up to him for some reason that I'll never understand. He doesn't believe that John Fetterman pre-stroke was known for being a good debater. He doesn't believe that he was receiving secret video messages or anything like that. He just doesn't care about any of this. Now, to be clear, a source familiar with negotiations behind the debate say that Fetterman wanted journalists in the debate room to independently see exactly how the closed captioning system worked in real time, so they would know that he was not receiving any secret messages or whatever other nonsense Fox is spreading. They were not allowed to do that though, because Dr. Oz's team blocked the request. Now, why that in the end was up to Dr. Oz's team, I don't know, but I do know why they blocked it. So that people like Stephen Miller and others, probably Tucker Carlson tonight, will be able to spread their conspiracy theories. Rather than having actual transparency, having journalists in the room, they decided no, that would clarify things in a way that makes it more difficult for us to spread our BS narrative. So no, we're gonna block the journalists and then let the internet do what the internet does. JR, what do you think?
Well, if I believe that if I truly believe that my opponent was having issues with this whole thing, or if I truly believed all the video stuff that people like, what's that idiot's name? Stephen Miller was saying, that all this is gonna happen and look how horrible he looks and all this, without it even being exhibited at the actual debate, before that happens, I would want journalists in the room. I would want them to see it. We talk about all the time how, they're covering up for these libs. How about some exposure? Why not some transparency? That's what we want, right? So if it gets out that then Dr. Oz wants to block journalists from doing their jobs of showing how badly John Fetterman would have to perform at this because of the results of his stroke or the recovery he's going through, I would want that there. If I don't want it there, that would indicate that I don't believe any of this BS that I keep talking about. I'm just trying to convince you to think it, and I have to make sure that you have limited amount of information to either confirm or refute the statements that I make.
Yeah,
that should be an indictment on me.
Like looking at the way that people have responded to this. First of all, like as we've said, did he have difficulty expressing himself? Yes, he obviously did. Is it potentially even worse than I might have thought it would have been, considering that I've seen him speak recently and he had more capacity, in the recent past? Yes, but it makes me wonder, what if, this is a crazy hypothetical, it could never actually happen, but let's think about it. What if a person ran for office that couldn't speak at all? Would everyone in media just declare, well, obviously they can't be a senator. I mean, they can't speak. Now, Fetterman, of course, can speak. He has what, 30% more difficulty than a random person? I don't know, maybe you think it's 40 or 50, I don't know. But he has far more capacity. But they seemingly believe that if you have trouble hearing, if you have trouble speaking, then really suspect. I mean, we're not gonna come out and say that it's disqualifying, but we're really gonna talk about it a lot. And we're gonna make it so that you can't help but think that this race should be determined by that. Not about the policies, whether Fetterman's or Oz's, but about whether he'll be able to give like a rousing bit of oration or something. That's what they're doing. That's actively what they're doing. Will it work? I don't know. Maybe a bunch of people will turn against him and support MAGA because Fetterman stumbled in his speech. I don't know. I know that Fetterman raised $1 million in the 3 hours after the debate. That doesn't necessarily mean much. I mean, his supporters presumably are giving him the money. We don't know that they're new supporters, but this is obviously a thing that Oz loves. They want the race to be determined on this. They wanted, by the way, 7 debates with Fetterman. And honestly, in most races, I would have been fine with that. Now, of course, bear in mind, if Fetterman hadn't had the stroke, there's no way in hell that Dr. Oz would have wanted the 7 debates. This is all about trying to press what they see as a weakness for Fetterman. But I'll also remind you that the point of a debate is communication. It doesn't have to be vocal communication, but you're supposed to learn about the candidates. And as much trouble as Fetterman might have had in literally turning his thoughts into speech, think about Dr. Oz, who can speak. He's TV, he's a slick, polished TV personality. But he also had a lot of trouble turning his thoughts into speech, because when he was asked if he would support a Trump 2024 run, he initially wouldn't say. Now notice, he could say, he can speak, he doesn't have those trouble, but he didn't want to say. Now he eventually said, I'll support whoever the Republican Party puts up, as if he wasn't joined at the hip with Donald Trump like 4 months ago. Okay, and as we're gonna get to when it comes to abortion, he can speak, but he doesn't want to speak about his positions on this. And I would argue that that's much worse. A guy telling the truth but stumbling along the way, I am always gonna back over someone who can speak for hours at a time and tell you literally nothing about what they're gonna do if they get into power.
It's the
Any
conversation
final thoughts
about
before we move on?
Yeah, it's the conversation about principles and policies versus just trying to politic. Let's keep it real. So yeah, and we know the first level of politicians is to not give much substance, just try and paint a picture and make sure that you vote for them. So just really fast, just as far as their principles and policies, because look, they're saying John Fetterman is unable to serve because of the recovery from the stroke, right? So as I think many people have mentioned, everyone knows someone that's maybe had a stroke, or at least you're close enough to it that you've seen this. I have directly in my family, I've seen it. So if you say that he can't do the job, cool, you can say that, you can claim that and consider that maybe he can't do the job. What does that do with other folks? What's your thoughts on other folks? What's the Republican Party's approach to people who have chronic pain, or maybe are disabilities, or maybe fell into these things maybe because of health problems? Similarly to John Fetterman, what do they say about them in work? Do you guys know about it? Because a lot of times we talk about like safety nets, healthcare systems, all that stuff. What we tell them is shut up and get your ass back to work. We don't care that they need to be home longer. We don't care that they said, hey, I can't do the job at the same nature because of this health problem I've got. This whole thing, cancer. When those things happen, we go, shut up and get back to work. Look at you lazy freeloaders trying to take money and healthcare from anyone and everyone else. We treat them like garbage. That's the approach to people with health issues and working in the country, unless it's John Fetterman. Then suddenly it's hey, he can't ever do anything ever again in his life. Should he go home and start feeding off the system and taking money? Exactly. I don't think they want that.
Sort of doubt they actually believe that. Sort of doubt that they care.
Sorry, it was a long tangent, but still.
That's okay, but like the messages attacking him, I hate, obviously. The messages pretending that they're just concerned for him and they want him to focus on his recovery. And it's really mean that people like his wife would be pushing him to run and they just want him to get better. I just want to set the world on fire with my mind like a Stephen King character. Anyway, with that said, why don't we move on to the substance, since no one else will. Let's go into this first side.
There should not be involvement from the federal government in how states decide their abortion decisions. As a physician, I've been in the room when there's some difficult conversations happening. I don't want the federal government involved with that at all. I want women, doctors, local political leaders, letting the democracy that's always allowed our nation to thrive, to put the best ideas forward so states can decide for themselves.
That was really a perfect Dr. Oz response at last night's debate. It was half a lie, and the other half, where he was being kind of honest, was awful. So we'll return to whether he wants the federal government kept out of this. And he doesn't want us to return, as you'll see. But let's focus on, it should be up to you and your doctor and local political leaders, like the city councilman, comptroller, county dog catcher, exactly which local political leaders should be determining what happens in your uterus? How much access should, like, I don't know, the county bursar or something have in your fallopian tubes? He thought that that was a winning line. That yes, okay, I get it, I'm giving control over your body to politicians, but it's local. And isn't that what old school democracy is about? Local neighborhood decisions over your body and your future, determining whether you have to bring new life into the world. They really saw that as a win. Jayar, I hope that the Fetterman campaign takes that, clips it out, and just plasters it over the state. It won't bother Oz too much because he won't see it, he won't be there. but I think it should be everywhere across Pennsylvania.
I do think I'm seeing it a little bit. I mean, you're seeing more social media, but again, directly in Pennsylvania, yeah. And even if Fetterman's camp doesn't do this, everyone's noticing that stark line there. Your local politicians, so they're the ones in the room. Again, bro, I'd say this all the time when you get the pundits on TV saying stuff, and you go, "Oh my God, I can't believe he said that." This was planned. This was not like an off-the-cuff remark. This wasn't a gaffe. This is what they wanted him to say, which was the local politicians should be involved in your pregnancies. And we've seen over and over again as we've gone through this whole Roe versus Wade debate ever since the thing was first leaked, that what they're gonna do is local politicians proving, not even local ones, national politicians, all of them that are against women's rights over their own body, proving that they have no idea how any of this works, but they should be involved in decision making after we've seen in stark terms they're clueless as to how any of this works or reasons why many women have to make these types of decisions.
Yeah. So that's just such a terrible part of that answer. And obviously Fetterman wants you to have control of your body, but I do want to focus on the other part of it because he also lied there. The truths that he told were terrible, but the lies I think were worse because he said, I want it to be up to local politicians. It's not for the federal government to do that. But does he actually believe that? Because 3 times he was asked whether he would support a federal ban on abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. That's the Lindsey Graham model that they're almost certainly gonna vote on if they take control of the Senate. 3 times he declined to give a straight answer. And I gotta say, ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Not on the substance. Senate campaigns are not supposed to be about the substance. Don't determine your vote based on the substance. That's aside. But if somebody has trouble communicating an answer, if they can't say what they think, well, then that's what you should vote based on. And so forget about the fact that he totally would vote for that. Or if it was 14 weeks or 11 weeks or 6 minutes, doesn't matter. Whatever they put forward, he's going to support. He refused to actually say. Now, if he wouldn't support it, he'd be happy to say that because that would be a popular position to take. And politicians notably like saying popular things. The fact that he wouldn't answer it is actually an answer. We know exactly what his position on that is. Fetterman says, if you believe that the choice of your reproductive freedom belongs with Dr. Oz, then you have a choice, promising that he would vote to codify abortion protections in a law, saying if you believe that the choice for abortion belongs between you and your doctor, that's what I fight for. Now that's a good answer on the substance, which is obviously irrelevant, but you'll notice that it was also a full sentence. And so now we can support Fetterman again because he can put together a full sentence, doesn't matter about what. We can support him and we can oppose Dr. Oz, doesn't matter about what. He didn't answer, and that's all that matters in American politics.
Weird how that works though, right? Also, by the way, and I spoke about this earlier on my show. What is it about the job? Yet, tell me specifically, because if you're right about something, and I don't have the answer because I've never been a senator before. So if you, what is it about the job will he not be able to do because of what you saw last night? What is it about? Is it about being able to debate? Maybe they're thinking he can't figure out what is being said. When actually, if you talk to doctors, they'll tell you he can figure what's being said. It's the communication. It's going from the brain to then speaking it, or even taking it in to that point. So would that be the problem there? Number one. Number two is the potential for him to get even better because people recover. That's what we call it, recovery. Will he be able to get better from that point? And because of the communication issue, is that an absolute a strike 3? We're done. Can't handle this because he's going to destroy the United States Senate because of it. There's one Herschel Walker that's running for Senate down in Georgia. Do you understand anything the hell this guy says? Does he make any sense? Does he lie constantly? And while he's lying, does he tell little anecdotal stories that make absolutely no sense? So if we're talking about communication and being able to do the job, what part about this job, this liar down in Georgia, have to do, what's part of his skill sets that you're having to ignore to think he should be in this position versus John Fetterman? What is it about the job? Just ask yourself that when you make these decisions.
100%. Let's jump to this next one. It's a fun one.
He keeps talking about Bernie Sanders. 3 years ago, he was on his show and he hugged him and he said, I love this guy. You know what? Why don't you pretend that you live in Vermont instead of Pennsylvania and run against Bernie Sanders? Because all you can do is talk about Bernie Sanders, because my truth is that healthcare is a basic fundamental right. And I believe in expanding that. And I believe about supporting, fighting for healthcare, the kind of healthcare that saved my life.
Well, hold up, Fetterman. There's still future elections. Dr. Oz might well want to run against him and head over there. Maybe he'll go up against Cinema or something someday. I don't know. He lives wherever he needs to. But I love that response because it isn't just about the fact that Dr. Oz is trying to make this election for some reason about Bernie Sanders while also dodging the fact that he's super close with Donald Trump. It's that Dr. Oz is an absolutely massive liar who has completely flip-flopped from the person he presented himself to be for years and years on his show. And I don't just mean about his position on Donald Trump or the fact that he apparently was a big fan of Bernie Sanders 3 years ago. That was like years after Bernie Sanders ran for president. So he knew exactly who Bernie Sanders was. He's flip-flopped on all sorts of things. He flip-flopped on vaccines, we're gonna get to. He flip-flopped on alternative medicine for COVID. He flip-flopped on abortion. He was a certain person before, and then he decided, I would very much like to be a Republican senator. And so he crafted an entirely new persona for him that has no relationship to anything approaching a value system, principles, anything like that. And we're gonna get to some of the damage that this hypocrisy has done, but I wanted to give you a chance, Jayar, to jump in. You muted yourself.
I was ready. I promise I was ready. The lies that get told, again, you have to base it off of, again, what these folks may do or say. Again, you said he decided to run for Senate as a Republican. I feel like if he saw the opportunity, he would have run for the Senate as a Democrat too. These types of folks that are drawn to these types of this, many times, these types of politicians that look this way as they run, the whole basis is just to get in. Just get in. Who cares? And the reasons why the supporters of it are okay with it is because we just need another number. We saw it after the whole thing started blowing up with Herschel Walker yet again. Who cares? We just need another body there, a breathing human that's gonna stand there and do what we tell him to do. There you have Dr. Oz.
Yeah, 100%. Well, let's see how his willingness to just say whatever he needs to in the moment that he thinks will make him popular or get him money can actually affect people. Let's jump into why he's famous. What has he been doing for all those years on TV? Let's take a look at this.
Did you or your company make a profit from promoting those products? You have 30 seconds.
I never sold weight loss products as described in those commercials. It's a television show, like this is a television show, so people can run commercials on the shows, and that's a perfectly appropriate and very transparent process. I ruffled a lot of feathers on my show because I told people the truth, and I'm proud of that. I'll do the exact same thing as a US Senator.
Now, see, that was a very slick response. He just kept talking and it was super smooth and it was a complete set of nasty, nasty lies. But it was smoothly delivered. The fact that he for many years pushed whatever berry or twig or whatever was popular that supposedly will allow people to drop 60 pounds in a month without any exercise. Don't focus on that. Focus on the fact that he ruffled feathers. Don't focus on the specific claims of a complete abdication of any ethical responsibilities he has as a doctor. Focus on vague stuff, like the fact that he ruffled feathers or something. No, he lied to people about berries and about shakes and about pills and all that stuff. And not in all those cases did he necessarily make any direct money from the sale of those pills, but that's hardly the only way one can profit. If he gets people to watch his show for years by promising them these miraculous results, and they watch his show, he gets paid for that. He doesn't have to get paid directly for the pills. And one would argue, I think, quite fairly, that if you're getting people to take these things and they're not getting better, in fact, they're avoiding potentially really going to a doctor or really starting to exercise, then the damage is just as real whether you directly profited per pill or not. But it went beyond just the advertisements. He, on his show, warned parents that apple juice contained unsafe levels of arsenic, which the FDA called irresponsible and misleading, obviously. In 2013, he warned women that carrying cell phones in their bras could cause breast cancer. That's not based on anything. I don't know, maybe a 4chan post, who knows? In 2014, the British Medical Journal analyzed 80 recommendations from his show and concluded that fewer than half were supported by evidence. And that most significantly went beyond just fruit-based juices into things like promoting chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine in more than 25 different appearances over just 2 months in the early stages of the pandemic. Now, he eventually stopped that once it showed that people who took these treatments are actually more likely to die from COVID than those who didn't. but he used it as an opportunity to get on TV, to sell his books, to get people to watch his stuff. He was willing to give people advice that he had no idea whether it was accurate or not, using the guise of being a doctor as effectively, it's the same. He would put a stethoscope around his neck in the same way that Herschel Walker would hold up a fake badge. It meant nothing to them, but it gives like sort of an aura of like authority or responsibility or something, JR. And that is very much a thing that should influence someone's choice of who to vote for in this race.
Very quickly, very simply, this is the thing. If there's somebody who shows their backgrounds, why do we talk about people's backgrounds so much in politics? It's because you maybe want to get an insight on who they are and how they approach situations. Maybe their moral compass. Maybe what they might do in the future. Because there's always, and it happens with both parties, both major parties. You may elect someone and go, damn it, that guy's nothing like what I thought. He doesn't follow any of the policies I want. Conservatives complain about this just like Democrats do. So they didn't do any of the policies he's doing. He fooled us. He tricked us. He said the things that we want to hear. Then he did the opposite. Some people were worried about that when it came to Dr. Oz earlier on. They're like, he's a Democrat, right? In the primaries. But now it's all on board. So if we're looking to people's past and the fact that he had this litany of things that he was willing to lie about for money and influence and more power and recognition, why wouldn't he do the same in office? That's the reason why we talk about this stuff.
Yeah, look, we know that virtually every politician is going to have a tenuous relationship with the truth. Why would you choose someone whose career was made on lying, like very specifically? And I get that that's in vogue. I mean, they did, after all, choose Trump in 2016, but I think there might be a better way.
Not lying will get you kicked out of the party. And I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah. Trump was complaining to Blake Masters that he didn't tell enough big lies in his debate. Okay, let's talk about one more thing really fast. Let's jump to this last video and we'll talk briefly about it.
What I'm saying is he is 6% ahead, okay?
Single digits.
Single digits, why? Because everybody's focusing on the personal attack. People aren't focusing on the issues that matter to the voters.
With your percentages, because I want people to really understand. So last hour we looked at several polls. We do the politics average on that. Fetterman's up by 1 percentage point. And CBS News Battleground Tracker poll, Pennsylvania Senate contest narrows. This is just from a few hours ago. The most recent polling has them at barely 2, just under 2. And that Fetterman was up by 5 points last month. So yeah, I don't see 6 anywhere. I know you can find an outlier, but that gets averaged in and it's 2% or under. It is squeaky tight, Leslie.
That is Harris Faulkner. She's one of the straight news people over on Fox. She's not there to just give you conservative ideology. She's there to call balls and strikes. And she had an issue with the first woman who talked about this 6-point lead of Fetterman. She was not gonna let that stand. Where the hell did you find that? I don't see that literally anywhere. Well, look, I don't know, maybe the first woman does her research somewhere else. Maybe she saw it, for instance, on that program just a few minutes earlier, because that's where the result came from. On that show, they put up what I'm gonna say is a 30-foot long graphic of Fetterman up 6 points over Oz. And apparently, the first woman is the only one paying attention to that, I guess. Now, look, the issue with this isn't that Harris Faulkner's overall point isn't accurate. The aggregate of all of the polls does have them being close. But if you look at this, you'll see that overall, yes, close and closer than it was. But literally every one of these polls is either tied or Fetterman is up. So I think it's acceptable to point out that Fetterman is leading. And it was the condescending nature of it. She held up her finger and said, now, I just wanna make sure that people understand. I don't know where you got this outlier. It was CNN, it was presented on your show, which you apparently don't watch. Literally, as you're sitting on the couch, you don't watch the show. So I don't know, just don't present it as such a like she is supposed to just be a journalist, a neutral arbiter of the truth. That's what they would say. I think that's BS. I don't think it actually exists. But when you present the information in that way, that condescending, smug tone, that it's ridiculous to think he could be up by 6, that is not being a neutral arbiter. That is opining while still trying to maintain the idea that she is above all of these mere pundits. She floats above them. She's not weighed down by ideology or anything like that. And it just isn't the case in case after case.
By the way, that huge 30-foot screen, I would love to play some NBA 2K23 on that. That one looks great.
Cool.
We'll hook that up later. But also, when it comes to this, the condescending nature, the reason behind that energy that Harris Faulkner wanted to push was to make sure anyone else, if you have any kind of an original thought, maybe you see something that doesn't make sense in the propaganda that they're pushing, it kind of pushes back on you to be like, maybe I shouldn't say it because that last lady got her head kind of bitten off trying to state some reality that we just saw. Which things should I say that doesn't match up? Well, okay, the programming doesn't like that point, so I won't make that point. And this is just a normal conversation. If you come to someone so aggressively, you're hoping everyone else is put on notice. We're not gonna take any of this truth telling around here. This is not what we do. In fact, I'm gonna say, where the hell did you get that from? And you can't say, your show.
Yeah.
You can't.
9 minutes earlier. Exactly. It's so endlessly condescending. And the point of the show is not to make sure that people watching it know what's really going on, which is fairly that it's a close race. Kayleigh McEnany kept responding to her saying it was 6 points, was saying single digits. It's to reassure the audience that the hosts, all 5 of them together, they take the viewer through the TV and they hold them and they stroke their head and they tell them that nothing bad will ever happen. And if something bad does happen, it didn't really happen. It was rigged and it was stolen and you're great and every one of your beliefs is just the best. That's the point of the show. It ain't about truth. Now that said, we do have to take our first break. When we come back, we got a lot more news. Don't go anywhere.
The best is yet to come.
Is that the what's her face? The Don Jr.'s wife. I forget her name.
Yeah, I see now it's contagious. There is I think it's a Something Bros. It's a YouTube channel, and they do these. They make songs off of many political ones. That one is one of my favorites. One of my favorites. There's also Massive Dump from Trump. Anyway, the song's on my mind. It's been on my mind for a week. It's fabulous.
We're gonna have to put
Remix Bros. Remix Bros. I think it's Remix Bros. With that one, the best. I'm sorry, I've taken enough time.
Okay, we'll see if we'll make a song out of the local politicians should control your cervix or whatever. Okay, let's see what's going on out there, everyone. Nasty Habits, the Nasty Dragon says, hello, everyone. I'm procrastinating in the best way possible, watching the damage report with all of you. Thank you. What a great way to waste your time. Thank you. Okay, Dystopian Dragon says Pensacola, member for 22 months. I think maybe we'd asked people how many viewers were in Florida and how many were in the Panhandle specifically. Maybe this is a reference to that. Oh, thank you, Kimberly Guilfoyle. I had forgotten that.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. Kai might be a dragon. Welcome to Tier 2 membership. You get access to our weekly top 10 lists at Tier 2. Let's see, Dragon Dancer has been a member for 23 months, says, woo, YouTube doesn't say 13. Glad to spend my anniversary with the Thunder. Remember, early voting is going on in many states. Go get them, Dragons. That is a great point. I would really avoid, like, if you have to vote on election day, vote on election day. But if you can vote before election day, just do that. Less chance of running into a right-wing nut job. Anyway, Dusty Jones says, it took guts for John Fetterman to go up on that debate stage and he did a fantastic job to do so. Pennsylvania's, no matter what, will vote for him. Yes, it was incredibly brave. I don't know if it necessarily is going to benefit him in terms of the polls. It might well do the opposite, but you gotta give respect to him that he wasn't just gonna hide like many of the candidates will, even knowing that he was at a massive disadvantage in terms of ability to communicate, and would have been without the stroke, by the way. Dr. Oz has done 30,000 hours of TV at this point. A lot of credit to him for that. We'll see what effect it has, though. Anyway, in the super chats, James Thompson says, Herschel versus Fetterman, Herschel loses hands down. Yeah, look, I might feel bad for Herschel Walker, but this is not an issue of a difficulty in taking his thoughts, which make sense, and turning them into speech. This is about him accurately talking about the insane thoughts that he has. That's the issue. Okay, Terry Wagner just sent a super chat, no message, but still much appreciated, thank you. And sent a different super chat that says, it's my birthday. While I'm not active on the chat, I'm active on the shelf as I made the baby Yoda in the Webby. Thanks for all you do. Well, thank you so much. This is the baby Yoda reference there by Terry. Thank you, Terry. Baby Yoda's hanging out in a place of honor. I would like to put this dragon in a Webby, but to do that, I'm gonna need another Webby. So I think we're gonna have to work on that. By the way, prepare yourself. In a few months, assuming we get nominated, I'm gonna be bothering you on a daily basis to vote in that thing. So prepare yourselves. Anyway, Jonah Morton says, OzFet race is what the establishment wants us to focus on because they're afraid progressive Tiffany Bond is polling well in Emmy District 2 ranked choice. Sure, potentially. I mean, I don't know that connection specifically, but they want us in the race to focus on certain things, certainly. Muscly Ginger Lover Dragon says, I just told my mom that my kid is trans. She was furious. Also, Oregon might turn red. Needs something to be hopeful about. Things feeling bleak. The Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special looks pretty good. That's something to look forward to for the holiday season. That's all I have for you. More news after this.
What is that?
What do you mean, what is that, JR? It's the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. Coming soon.
How does that work?
Disney Plus. It's a holiday special. I don't know what part of holiday special do you not understand?
It's the Guardians of the Galaxy part. I don't understand.
Well, that's a movie, and the movie has actors in it, and those actors are in this.
Put Santa Claus hats on or something.
There might also be Santa Claus hats, but it looks good anyway. Okay, with that, we got a lot to talk about. We've already, oh my God, it's 10:36. Let's jump into this and we're gonna be brief, JR, okay? Let's jump into this.
He has no issue being subpoenaed and answering questions about what happened that day, and he shouldn't.
So that's Alina Habba saying, obviously Donald Trump should testify. He's got no reason to not want to testify. I can't wait to see him testify. And you'll note that she said that on TV, but not all of life takes place when the cameras are rolling. And it turns out that behind the scenes, that's not what his lawyers are actually telling him. One of them spoke to Rolling Stone and said, absolutely effing not on whether he should testify. I really wish I could have said the whole thing. I'm sure that they did to him. Several of them have apparently directly told the ex-president this month that any testimony under oath would be an awful idea. The advisors cautioned Trump that committee members would mine his testimony for potential perjury charges, particularly given his penchant for lying. I know that they didn't say that directly to him, but I love that they know who he is. And they know there's no way this guy is gonna sit there and not lie in a way that could result in him going to jail. Anyway, they asked Ty Cobbs, former Trump White House attorney, if they agree that he should watch out for perjury traps, and says that is absolutely true. Trump is uniquely susceptible to that because he is so easily provoked. I love that he doesn't add provoked to do what? To lie viciously and repeatedly and predictably. But I also love the different lives that billionaires get to live than you or I. I don't know if you've ever been asked a tough question that you would have preferred not to have to answer, and you might lie in response to that. Now that just for us would be a social situation. For rich people though, it's a perjury trap. They ask you a question, you lie, and they're the bad guy somehow. I love how that works out for the rich and powerful, JR. You're not bad for lying. They're bad for being so uncouth as to ask you a question that they know you'll lie when you ask.
How dare you? You know, you guys know I'm trying to cover things up. You know I'm trying to make sure that I skirt by from all of these charges and investigations and potential criminal activity that I've been involved with. How dare you ask and try to find out? I was only the president of the United States. I only hoarded classified information. I only stole from my supporters. That's all that happened. I only violently told my people to go and attack the Capitol. That's all. Why are you guys on my back? What's the matter with you? Please, do you know who I am? This is why we set up this entire hierarchy in our country, that if you're on the top, you are untouchable. If the police can't touch you, if the FBI can't touch you, if the highest authority figures in the country can't touch you, who the hell are you, Joe Schmo in Alabama, to challenge me? This is the United States, but it's not what we say out loud, it's just how we act. Everything we do, many things that we do versus what we say are complete polar opposites here. But when it comes down to it, it's, wait, you guys do know how this works, right? This is Donald Trump. You don't challenge or ask him anything. You don't catch him in a lie. He's not a regular guy. Is that what we accept? Is that what we want?
You certainly don't expect anything of him. You don't expect honesty or anything like that. I'm gonna leave you with one more comment because it really gets to, so why should we discuss something like this? Well, the primary reason is I want to, and I want you to be able to hopefully have an idea ahead of time of how this is gonna play out. Is he gonna testify? What effect might that have on the midterms, on the actual case, on what people think about January 6th? But there is a secondary reason, and it's just that I really wanna make sure that Donald Trump knows that literally no one around him has any respect for him whatsoever. Because here is what one of the sources in his legal team said to the Daily Beast. Or sorry, this is Rolling Stone. It is my hope that we talked him out of it. The former president seemed receptive to our arguments against it, but with Donald Trump, it can be hard to tell sometimes what is actually sunk in or stuck.
Jesus.
They came to him, they're like, buddy, you can't testify because you're gonna lie and it's gonna be bad for you. And then they walk out of the room and like, I don't know if he got that. What a sad idiot.
It's the stuff we heard about during his presidency. People never know what he's thinking. The last person in the room is the one he goes with because his thought process is a gerbil.
Yeah, 100%. Don't slight gerbils. I prefer gerbils to most humans at this point, and I won't hear you bad mouthing them.
As soon as I said it, gerbils might have a great memory. I just threw that animal out there.
I doubt it. I think that their brain is maybe half the size of a raisinette, but I don't know I'm not a vet, I guess. Anyway, with that said, let's turn to far more serious and darker material. Apologies for the TD, I know that was abrupt. A lot more details have come out following the tragic shooting at a school in St. Louis, including about the killer, but we're gonna start with the victims. Here is a photo of student Alexandria Bell. It's only 15 years old, and Jean Kuchku, who is described as, this is a teacher by the way, was described by a student as when she saw the shooter, she stepped between the shooter and her students. 61-year-old teacher whose last act was to just try to save the lives of her students. And that is indisputably heroic no matter what. There isn't a person alive who doesn't like to think, to wish that they would do the same thing, but she did it. She just tried to save people's lives. And just very briefly, in this political context where we have so much focus on schools and so much explicit attacks against teachers, we know who teachers are and how much they sacrifice. But this is a reminder of what sometimes they have to sacrifice and willingly sacrifice. She's not the first teacher who has died trying to save the lives of the kids that she was in charge of. She won't be the last because of the decisions our politicians have chosen to make in America. But endless credit to her, such a loss, both of her and Alexandria, struck down before her life could even really begin. That said, let's turn now to the monster who killed them. Orlando Harris graduated the year before from that same school. He got himself an AR-15 style rifle. He got himself 600 rounds of ammunition, a dozen high capacity magazines. Why would you need those things? Well, to kill a lot of people. Why would it be legal to buy those things? Because nobody seems to care if you want to kill a lot of people. Here's a shot of the gun that he used. Total coincidence, by the way, that he went for an AR-15 style rifle. It's not because they're uniquely great at killing a lot of humans in a short period of time. It's just a coincidence like it is with basically every mass shooter. Anyway, accompanying all of that was this other piece of evidence, a handwritten note that said, I don't have any friends, I don't have any family, I've never had a girlfriend, I've never had a social life, I've been an isolated loner my entire life. This was the perfect storm for a mass shooter. Now that has sort of like the facade of self-analysis, but it's obviously lacking the part where he knew that this was the perfect storm, but then chose not to kill a bunch of people for some reason, was a loner, but chose not to join a group or a club or meet people. Now look, obviously we want there to be all of the support structures possible. We advocate every day for schools to be places where people are made to feel accepted and loved and all of that. There's also at the same time a little bit of personal responsibility. And if you can do this much self-analysis, you can probably take the next step and not kill a bunch of people who didn't cause these problems for you. Jayar, what do you think?
We also like to promote people sometimes when they have these thoughts and how societies come for them, and women are getting all out of pocket. We know the the manifesto for many of these folks who he mentioned one aspect of it. Never had a girlfriend, all that stuff. Whatever social maybe issues he has with getting along and fitting in, all those things we write off as just whatever weird kid, ha ha ha. In fact, all the way up to the tops of our political discourse, it's bullying and it's conversations and it's fighting and it's name calling. We see it all the time. So if we think that the leaders of our country are okay doing this stuff, of course, yeah, it's fine if someone else does. That's a separate whole thing here. But let's point out with Alexandria, and here's Jean, that teacher who stepped in front. She did, I think, save some lives. I don't know the exact scenario, but because of that, who knows then what changed, what this guy saw when he started shooting, and maybe something spoke in him because of the heroism that she then exhibited. But also, I say it every time, what was the criminal history again on this guy? None. Until he started shooting at innocent people. So he was a good guy with a gun walking up to the school the entire way, according to the NRA.
Yep.
He had a gun, he had no history with crime, and then he started shooting people. At that point, he became the bad guy with a gun, right? And then so we need more good guys with guns, and hopefully they don't flip and become bad guys with guns in that same moment too. It's a really volatile and not a very safe situation to go by, that we should base our political discourse and access to guns, to have it based off. Just in case a guy decides to start shooting, let's just go ahead and let it happen. We don't care about it until it happens. That's the way we run these things. We don't prevent crime. We just respond to it and say, I'm gonna do something, vote for me. They need more of this.
Yeah. And basically all those people will turn around and say, guys like this should still be able to go out and buy these rifles. We should not stop that from happening.
100%.
Okay, we're gonna take our last break of the hour. When we come back, we're gonna have a little bit of fun though after this. Okay, everybody, I haven't yet seen anything about the press conference. Still waiting for that to happen. Would love for that to happen live. We'll see though. Florida Dragon, member for 21 months, says, so if they believe that life begins at conception, should local politicians be present during conception? Don't give them the option, Florida Dragon. Moonraven, member for 21 months, says, happy B-Day to me. Happy birthday, Moonraven. I love that I get to spend my morning with John, Jayar, and the Dragon Squad. I'll share my wish with you. What should it be this year? Oh, I thought you meant you'll tell us about it. You mean, what will it be? I'd like the next Deadpool to come out soon. Could that possibly happen? I think you should use your wish for that. Or maybe, I don't know, an end to the climate crisis. I'm fine with either of those. I don't even know which I prefer. Anyway, okay, let's see. Jacob says Chris Pratt is actively anti-LGBT, just saying, I get what you're saying. I need something to watch for the holidays. And I'm not watching it for Star-Lord anyway, I'm watching it for Rocket and Mantis. Does that make it okay? Anyway, River Rose sent in a super chat just saying, to all teachers, thank you. Anthony says, hi guys, Connecticut Dragon. My first super chat from New Hampshire. Just saw an ad for Bolduc. If he wins, I'll never forgive the Dems for backing him in his primary. Oh well, at least I live in a blue district. Yeah, that's another one of those things on election day we're gonna be watching for, this fun little gamble that might save some Democrats, maybe. And if it doesn't, it might doom all of us. So stay tuned, it's fun. It's like gambling, but with the whole country. Zumble says, to paraphrase a former NRA grifter, I don't care if you can't pronounce endangered baby eagles. I want control of the Senate. I see what you're doing there. What was her name? Dana Loesch? Is that her name? Thank you.
Yeah, Dana Loesch.
Yes, exactly. Okay, well, we'll see if she has the same thing to say after this next press conference. I imagine she will. Less Than Lucid says, DJ Lunchbox album when? How dare you? Okay, let's see. Pharaoh Blue Blazers Dragon says, Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, Holy Shades of Star Wars Holiday Special Batman. I'm sure that is what they're thinking of. This one looks like it's probably gonna be better though. Anyway, over on the Twitch, Shadow Wolf has been with us as a subscriber for 20 months. Thank you. Never Better for 18 says, I voted in Texas today, but I was astonished today the amount of white voters that were there, scared of the outcome. I don't know what area of Texas you're in. I don't know how representative it is. I know that a lot of people are voting in these midterms. We'll see what happens. Jay Jesper has been a member for 15 months. Says, hi John, glad to be here for a bit. I'm not doing too well health-wise right now, physically or mentally. Thanks for keeping up the fight. I find myself struggling to do anything right now. Much love, everyone. Take time to recover. Everyone needs to, we might all start at different points in terms of physical or mental health, but we all have to watch out for ourselves and for each other. And thank you for watching. Jax Drax has been here for 29 months. Says, in these dark times, I find some relief in knowing that Dr. Oz isn't my doctor. He shouldn't be anyone's doctor, nor senator. Couldn't agree more on both counts. Let's see, Angelica's been here for 7 months. Thank you. J Dog for 19. Says, hosts from Connecticut rule. Thank you, much appreciated. Okay, let me use a little bit of time that we have remaining to remind you that if you are just returning from perhaps a couple weeks of purgatory away from the news, do you know that every day you now have an opportunity to hear what Nina Turner thinks about the news? It's called Unbossed, and it's live every weekday at 4 p.m. Eastern time, 1 p.m. Pacific time. She's joined by a number of awesome different hosts. She does interviews, gives you, by the way, it has a focus on positive, uplifting news. So if you've been wanting some of that, maybe consider tuning in. YouTube.com/unbossedTYT. More news coming at you after this. Oh geez, these hours pass by so fast. Let's jump into this. According to Marjorie Greene, she has been swatted again. And again, and again, and again, and again, and again. 6 times, apparently, actually. She says she was swatted for the 6th time just last night. This would be as of Tuesday night, I think, maybe Monday night. So swatting is a very serious crime. The caller wants to have their victim murdered by police, but it is also a giant abuse of police resources and time, which is another reason it is a serious crime. God bless my local police. Well, first of all, I'm glad to see her saying God bless my local police. Presumably the local police aren't standing between her and a democracy she wants to overthrow. And so she is not beset by a bloodlust and wants to kill them with her bare hands. So that's good news. I also, by the way, agree with her on all of her other points. It is a giant abuse and waste of police resources. It is a very serious crime. Nobody should be swatting anyone, including people that we disagree with as much as we're physically capable of disagreeing with anyone or anything. Don't swat Marjorie Greene, don't swat anyone. I will add though, that she has now had an experience of this. She knows how bad it can be, how terrifying it can be. She is still technically a congressperson. Why not use this to raise swatting as an issue nationally, to actually take this terrible thing that's happening to you and that hopefully should stop and turn it into something productive and positive, where you try to get a law passed that makes it less likely for this to happen, that makes it so that there might be some sort of unified list of phone numbers where people who are being routinely swatted, including political streamers, can be protected from this routinely happening to them again and again. The onus is not on her to do this, but just like her talking about how solitary confinement is bad when it happens to the January 6 people, you have an opportunity to show that you don't just care about yourself or someone who agrees with you, that you actually see an injustice and will work to correct it. This is an amazing opportunity for that, Marjorie Greene. We'll see if she takes it. Yeah, what do you think?
She can't take it because it's not about her. I think you pointed out pretty clearly there. The whole idea is that it's about her. You said take it nationally. Think about other people that this happens to. That will require her to get outside of her own brain and not think this is all about her or about her political aspirations. Continuously about her. You know what? There's a problem with people calling the cops on folks that aren't doing anything. Many times they're black folks, and they go, let's just call the cops on them. And then when that comes, does she complain about their wasted resources? Does she care about the fact that cops come up and many times shoot these folks without asking any questions and believe the other person's story and arrest people, many times children? Does she care about any of that stuff when she's talking about how there's a problem? She cares about it when it's her problem. Yes, and I agree. 100%. Stop swatting Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. Those Karen calls are effectively swatting. It's in public, I guess, but it's just as bad, just as dangerous.
And they say it openly half the time. They go, I'm gonna get the cops here and they're gonna do this and that to you. They know it. Sorry.
Exactly. Let's jump into our last topic of the hour. Marjorie Greene took part in a call-in show called Night Talk on North Georgia's UCTV. And she was asked some tough questions. We'll see how she responded to one about abortion.
If a child, the 10-year-old child that was raped, what about?
Then I think we should put the rapist, a child abuser.
Be punished. The child can't have anything done to her without the government going after them, fining them, and all that stuff. That's not right.
A child abuser and a rapist should be put to death if they are doing that to a 10-year-old child. Number one, I think that should be our focus. That is a very rare occasion, so that should not be the entire premise of the argument on abortion. Again, ma'am, I know you say it's your body, your choice, but I don't think you're having any children anytime soon. I think we need to focus on the future of America, and that's our children.
Okay, so that's absolutely disgusting, especially her apparently hearing in the woman's voice that she's older and thus saying effectively saying you shouldn't be opining on this because you're old, you won't be having kids, so you don't get to have a say over what happens to your body. And then of course there's the dodge of, well, we'll put that guy to death and that should be our focus. Forget the victim, let's not worry about them. And also, oh, that might be rare, so let's not focus on it. She's, of course, one of many Republicans that will tell you that Democrats want to have abortion after birth, which is beyond rare. It doesn't exist, but they want that to be the focus of the conversation. Importantly, though, to the extent that she has an ideology, it is that this is a different human body, and thus you're not allowed to end it. Now, she's missing the point that consent matters. In these examples, the woman did not consent to be responsible for this body. And there's the classic hypotheticals. What if you woke up in a hospital with a person strapped to your body operating as life support for them? Are you required to allow them to use your body to stay alive? I mean, it is another life on the line, and obviously you're not. Consent actually matters to most people, not to Marjorie Greene. Jayar, what do you think?
Well, this is one of those things, again, it's just about her, but when she's talking about this 10-year-old and maybe the victim, a child, since we're protecting them, it's a victim of a rapist and everything. Kill him, kill him, kill him. They're all about the consequences for these criminals, but they're not about trying to prevent it. It's an ongoing thing over and over again. If we just talked about her getting swatted, do you think think her stance is, let's just wait for maybe she keeps saying the police would come and kill her and swatting. It's okay, let's not do anything until I get killed. Then go after the cops that killed me, or then go after the person who swatted me. Do you think that's her stance? I think she wants to stop it beforehand.
I doubt it, 100%. And look, she's very clear there. She does not see there to be exceptions. It's murder, okay? So just understand, if you allow people like her to get into power, whether her as a representative or maybe the vice president someday, this is their actual position. The advantage that Marjorie Greene has over a lot of these Republican politicians is she will be honest about what she thinks, and it's horrific. Anyway, she eventually fled from the show after being asked about January 6th. They just came back from break and she was done. That was it. See ya, bye-bye, she's gone. The hosts seemed bewildered by what had happened. And I sort of you should have known something weird was gonna happen when you had her on the show.
Profiles encouraged.
Anyway, yeah, profiles encouraged. That's all the time we have for this hour. Thank you to those watching on the linear platforms, listening on the podcast. There's a lot more to come in the aftermath though on Twitch, YouTube, and other platforms, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back, one and all, to the Aftermath with me, John Iadarola, and Jayar Jackson. Still with us for Big News Wednesday. Jayar, as always, thank you for being here. But we don't just also have Jayar. That'd be enough, trust me. We have a special guest who'll be joining us in just 1 second. So let's talk about this. You can learn a lot from politicians' financial disclosures. You can get an idea of whether their ethics are on the up and up in terms of whether they're using personal information to personally profit for themselves. But there's actually a lot more you can learn. And we're gonna be joined by a guest who's been sifting through this and finding out some pretty shockingly personal stuff about these politicians. You've probably guessed it if you know the damage report. We're joined once again by the deputy editor for Insider, Dave Levinthal. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, John, thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here, always down to talk financial disclosures with you. But this time, this is an angle I did not predict. You have apparently shown how, by looking at these financial disclosures, you could, in theory, predict some pretty personal stuff about politicians. Talk us through this.
I mean, look, these things they're typically pretty dry, pretty boring. Every once in a while, you find a lawmaker doing something wrong, even illegal. You definitely have conflicts of interest that we have written about time and time again for months and months and months. But wasn't banking on these financial documents that get filed by politicians to potentially predict that they were going to get divorced. But yet, this is what we found with one Kanye West. Remember, he ran for president back in 2020, and we went back and looked at his financial disclosures that he filed about his personal finances back in late 2020 when he was still running for president. And he made a very curious disclosure, or for that matter, non-disclosure, saying, actually, I'm not going to fill out some of this personal financial information because of circumstances that he really didn't detail. Well, there's a little provision, John, in federal law that says if you're getting divorced or you have split up with your spouse, that you do not have to disclose their personal finances that you otherwise would have to do. Kanye, well, he invoked that little, element in federal law, which at the time didn't really seem like anything, but well, 4 months later, Kim Kardashian West, she was filing for divorce from Kanye West.
Well, look, this is fascinating, not only because you've shown that we have a case of this. There are politicians currently serving who this could influence their future financial disclosures. It's also for some, that might be watching this and then thinking about future runs, this could potentially come into play. I mean, if Donald Trump doesn't want to disclose things, he could press the eject button on Melania and then buy himself a few months potentially. I'm very curious. You talked about this as being this provision. Do they have to prove it in any way? I mean, if you get divorced, that's easy to demonstrate, but you said that they could just in theory be separated. That seems like a thing that you could game if you wanted to.
Maybe, but if you're going ahead and using this little provision in law to not disclose financial information about your spouse, probably means that something is up there. And there's sort of the wait, but there's more with Kanye, and not involving Kanye, but two sitting members of Congress. We look back at the records and we looked at Madison Cawthorn, the representative from North Carolina, famously troubled, and he lost in his primary earlier this year. He's going to be out of Congress, but he filed a financial disclosure, which was very curious because in the months after he got married in 2021, he didn't reveal anything about his spouse, who on social media and other places was lauding as the most wonderful person that he has ever met and has changed his life. But yet his financial disclosures indicated that he hadn't merged any of his finances with his spouse, that he didn't disclose any information, financially speaking, about his new spouse. And well, what happened? After about 8 months, they got divorced. Marjorie Taylor Greene, may have heard her name, representative from Georgia. She is also getting divorced from her husband of many, many years. And what we noted in reporting earlier this year is that her spouse was making investments, which Marjorie Taylor Greene did disclose, that were wildly curious because of who the investments were with. They were with companies, for example, that were in essence like Walmart and Amazon and several others that had made statements that were absolutely diametrically opposed to the political philosophies and leanings of Marjorie Taylor Greene, which don't have to tell you and your viewers, are pretty far right in a lot of ways. So in essence, he was investing in companies that said, Black Lives Matter, we love them, great, awesome, go for it. Talking about LGBTQ issues and being wonderfully supportive of those causes. Marjorie Taylor Greene, very not there. So it was just this kind of odd curiosity and wrinkle, though, that got to the heart of what was clearly a personal rift between Marjorie Taylor Greene and her husband that played out in kind of final form and fashion back in September when Perry Greene, her husband, filed for divorce against Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I find this to be fascinating, and I want to get your opinion on something, because I don't know if there's a journalist in the country who spends more time on or cares more about these financial disclosures, believes that these laws, to the limited extent that there are any regulations of this sort of thing, that they should be followed. But obviously, we're now in the area of divorce, and I think that relationships are complicated. I generally don't invest much of my thought into the marital troubles of even people that I disagree with, or in the case of Marjorie Greene, openly despise. And so it feels like it makes sense that there should be an allowance for a bit of secrecy, or I don't know, some sort of legal respect for a difficult period. And yet we need access to this information. There's a lot of legitimate concerns about corruption. And we know that already they don't willingly give a lot of information. Much of it, as we've often talked about, is super late if it's given at all. So as someone who delves into these a lot, what are your thoughts about the ability to hide some of this stuff during these periods? Do the laws make sense? Do you think that they should be shifted?
Well, first of all, thank you for the compliment, John. It also is, raising questions in my own mind about my life choices. But be that as it is, I mean, this really, your question gets to the heart of the matter of why does this matter? Why should people care? And really, at the heart of the law that is on the books, it's called the Stock Act, the Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge Act, passed 10 years ago. It is about corruption. It is about conflicts of interest and defending against potential conflicts of interest that lawmakers, or for that matter, their spouses, may have with the official duties that they're here in Washington, D.C. to take care of. One very notable example very recently where this has come into play and with great controversy is House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Her husband is an incredibly aggressive stock trader, one of the most aggressive stock traders from a personal standpoint, in addition to a professional standpoint, of any congressional spouse, trading tens and tens of millions of dollars every year in stocks, and in doing so to the benefit of himself and his spouse, who is the Speaker of the House. Now, meanwhile, this is all happening during a debate ongoing in Congress. There could be a vote as soon as November to ban members of Congress from trading stocks because, as you just alluded to, we have found dozens of examples here at Insider of lawmakers violating the Stock Act in one way or another, most of them for sometimes going months or even years without disclosing their stock trades in the first place. So the public has the ability to find out and decide for itself whether conflicts of interest even exist in the first place. So Nancy Pelosi's husband doing this while there is an active congressional debate going on, and also too trading stock in, I'll give you one example, NVIDIA, the chip maker, and doing so to the tune of 6-7 figures in just the immediate days before Congress was considering the CHIPS Plus bill, which was pumping billions of taxpayer dollars into a program that would invest in domestic production and support and research for computer chips when, semiconductors and other technology of the sort has become very difficult to get access to.
I'm going to be watching that. I'm just fascinated to see it. It feels like it reached this critical point and they're sort of dragging it out. I really hope that they can make progress on that. And to go back to the compliments, if they do, it will be in no small part thanks to the work of both you and the Insider team. So thank you for that, for joining us on the show today. Everyone watching, definitely check out Dave's work. Sometimes it touches on the relationships of politicians. Generally, it touches on concerns over corruption and all of that. Really do appreciate you joining us, Dave. Thank you as always.
Thank you, John.
Have a good day. For all of you watching at home, Jayar returns. We've got a couple things to talk about. First of all, though, I am going to read a few of your comments. Thank you to all of you sending in comments, for instance, resubscribing on Twitch. New Moon JLP says, I love it when my sub anniversary pops up during my favorite TYT program. Thanks for all you do, Dragon Daddy. Thank you. Thank you for 19 months, in fact, much appreciated. Tie-dyed Terror Dragons video for 11 months. Thank you. Crafty Kether for 15 says, always good to resub with John. Just finished a game of Mosaic, a civilization story. I love it. Now it's off to work. Sounds good. I don't actually know that game. I have to look into it. Shadow Devil's been here for 19 months. Thank you. Chipmunk PDX, aka the Statistics Dragon, has been here for 23 months. Thank you very much. Says, love my geeky TDR community and still want to see a TYT D&D session. I know, we might do it. I actually played some D&D last night. It's just, I get really stressed out playing D&D, and I want to make sure that if we do a stream that it'll actually be fun, but we'll see.
It's weird, John. I get stressed out thinking about playing D&D. Is that the same thing?
Is there any way that I could get you to play a role-playing game?
Is that like the what's it called? The one shooter games? Is that called a role-playing game? I'm not sure exactly what a role-playing game is.
No, so role-play, not a video game. This is like you play, like, have you seen Stranger Things?
Yes, well, the first season, 2 seasons. No, I saw whatever the last
play.
Season. I've seen everything but the last season. Okay, sure. What?
Sure. The kids play a game around a table. It's make believe. You're pretending to be a different character. It's fun.
It's like a board game.
Kinda, yeah, a little bit. A little bit like more Monopoly. Open-ended, but yeah, it could theoretically.
I see. No, I remember that now. Yeah. By the way, the answer to your question is there's nothing you can say.
I will take Sprocket off your hands for a full week if you play an RPG.
That's solid.
Anyway, okay. Chips Reynolds says, okay, what is swatting? Chips, thank you for reminding me that sometimes I just roar right past explaining the basic concepts of the things we talk about in videos. I don't think I actually defined it. I mean, you sort of could have gotten the context eventually in the video, but that's a great point. Swatting is when you call the police and say that there's either like a gunman at a place or someone is thinking about harming themselves or someone else. And so the cops rush over and bust down the door and I don't know, maybe throw a stun grenade in or shoot somebody. That's a great question, much appreciated. I gotta remember that not everyone knows the full cast of this cinematic universe we talk about. Not everyone knows all of the terminology. You don't all know what Hydra is or who Coco Chow is. I gotta remember that. Anyway, Pitchforks Dragon says Greene was her ex-husband's name. Let's just call her Marge. Pitchforks, I get it. I have no idea what she will, like sometimes people maintain the same name. I'm gonna wait and see. I leave off the Taylor because that's a branding thing, but she can have whatever actual name she wants. And Kruger like Freddy, I do like Fate. That's a possibility. Okay, with that said, we are running low on time. Why don't we jump into our next story, this G Block with this video. That is just a small fraction of the over 200 demonstrators, counter demonstrators, protesters and counter protesters who decided to show up at a drag queen story hour that happened in Oregon at the old Nick's Pub. It was in Eugene, Oregon. Apparently about 50 people attended the event, which puts it at a tiny fraction of the number of people outside of it. Some of them supporters of the event, which is intended to inspire a desire to read and use your imagination for young people. Others had different motivations. Some threw rocks and smoke grenades at each other. You can see a photo here of grenades being thrown. There were people wearing tactical gear and riot masks, and they had guns. There were people with semi-automatic weapons who decided to show up here. And it's so weird that so many people would show up at a random drag queen story hour in some town in Oregon. It's almost like it's a national thing where these things are being picked up and then presented to everyone on the internet so that people will go there with guns and freak everyone out and make people fear that they might be shot or beaten or something like that. Now, thankfully, this case, it didn't escalate too much beyond throwing rocks and smoke grenades. Police didn't make any arrests, which doesn't really say anything about the protesters there, since the cops almost certainly are on their side. One person was taken to the hospital. It was an unspecified injury, but there were no arrests, so I guess no one was responsible. In any event, the organizers of the event say that they're going to continue. The event was successful. They are having to spend thousands of dollars on private security, which they have to pay for some reason, not libs of TikTok and Charlie Kirk and the others who make these protests happen. But anyway, Jayar, it just continues to build and get bigger and bigger and bigger. We're now to the hundreds of people crowded outside of these events.
This continues to be the growing trend of people just have nothing else to do with their time. We had protesters that are actually protesting things like the murder of folks by police officers. It's like, why don't these guys have jobs? You guys are going and harassing drag reading shows. And they say that when people are activists and they work towards trying to change the way policing happens in the country, that they need to go get a job. But these folks that hang around in hundreds of people coming out to harass and intimidate folks with their guns, where's their jobs? Where's their free time going to? They've been pushed to these types of things to be told that there's some kind of assault on their life. You showed up there, bro. Looks like you're interested and you're curious about these drag reading hours. Maybe you want to learn something. Maybe your curiosity for literature is finally sparked because your entire life you were too. I'm not gonna go insult their intelligence. I was almost there, John. But this is what you do with your time. But you complain about other folks and what they're doing. They're looking to inspire and help other folks out. What is it that they're doing at these drag shows that you went and broke up by standing there with your guns? What are you gonna do with your guns? Are you gonna defend yourself with those guns? Is it known that drag queens run around with pistols and start shooting at people after they get through indoctrinating your kids with this evil reading of books? Yeah. Why are you there with guns? Because you're the terrorists. You're the people that are looking to intimidate. You're the bad guys.
Yep. Yeah, the drag queens aren't throwing grenades. They're not throwing rocks, and nobody's gonna get shot listening to them read a book. You could actually go to the event and you could watch it and you could see what happens. See if it's as bad as what you've been told on Twitter by biased political actors. But they don't want to do that. They're not interested in that. Thankfully, nobody died. We will continue to say that until it's no longer true. And I feel like every day we get closer to that happening.
Because you know what's in America? Okay. People with tons of guns, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, they've got guns too. And as soon as they start showing with their guns, you're gonna say, look at these violent people. And you start shooting.
Okay, everybody, we gotta talk about one more topic before we close things out. Let's jump whenever we're ready to this.
We were lied to by the scientists. We were lied to by Pfizer. We were lied to by the government. We were lied to by the Biden administration. We were lied to. I don't like being lied to. I don't know about you. And it makes me not believe these people. Now, as I've spoken out before, I got vaxxed twice, or I'm double vaxxed. My wife being a doctor and seeing vulnerable patients is triple vaxxed. But knowing now what I know then, knowing then what I know now, rather, would I have actually gotten vaxxed based on the information that my actual chances of death from COVID were exorbitantly low, and I wouldn't be preventing my parents from getting it? That was really what I was concerned about, because we were bubbled with my parents. Would I have gotten it? I don't know. I really don't know. I think maybe not. Because again, my personal risk when it comes to the vaccine was extremely low when it came to COVID. I'm a young, healthy male with no pre-existing conditions.
Well, there is one pre-existing condition, which is that he's a right-wing pundit and he desperately needs them to like him and trust him and love him and watch him, which is why he's scrambling in that video to change his record on the vaccine. You see, Ben Shapiro actually got a little bit of credit from people like me over the past few years, because while almost everyone else on the right was telling people not to get vaccinated, he made the bold, crazy decision to go along with Donald Trump and say, hey, this is the thing that Donald Trump made, supposedly, that he really likes. Maybe we should take it and not die needlessly. And that is now something that needs to be purged from his record. And so Ben Shapiro is falling all over himself, pretending that there's something wrong with the vaccine, that he's worse off now because he got vaccinated, that his wife, the doctor, got vaccinated. They're perfectly fine, as they say, in perfect health. They've suffered in no way from these vaccines. They know that there was no downside to getting it, except potentially the talking about it part. Because if their audience believes that they're insufficiently pure, if they're siding with the doctors and with Fauci, then that could hurt them in their competition with the various clones of Ben Shapiro. And so there he is, lying to his audience, taking back one of the few things he said over the past few years that deserved any credit whatsoever. That's Ben Shapiro for you, Jayar.
Was he getting some kind of like hate from his audience or something?
I'm sure that he was. You've seen with Donald Trump when he'll give a rally and he'll tell people, he'll say, I know I'm not supposed to say this, but you should get vaccinated, and people boo him. Yeah. They are super sensitive to that sort of stuff.
Well, and then what's the details of what happened? What's so wrong now? Again, it's the same thing. Like, I had a low personal risk. He went back to the original talking point, because what it is you're supposed to be like, because the reasons behind it, which he understood because he's not stupid, was I've got elderly parents. I was going to be near them. My wife works in a hospital that's high risk. All those things make sense. He repeated it. I'm not sure why, because that's making the case for why this is a bad move. This is a bad thing to recount your actual experience on, because you were right. You told us reasons why you were right. You have to eliminate the facts, Ben, before you then say the nonsense. You can't give facts and then say I'm against them. That's weird. Yeah. But except for people who listen to you, then they'd be like, that's right. Reject those facts. Go with stupidity. That's what we do.
I'm gonna provide 2 facts for him. The first is that according to one analysis, COVID-19 vaccines saved an estimated 20 million lives in the first year that they were available, which is amazing, and he should factor that into what he says about vaccines going forward. The second fact he should factor into how he uses language, and this is the most petty thing that I'll literally ever say, except that I'm told continually that he's an intellectual gladiator and he went to better schools than me, he's much smarter. Exorbitant doesn't mean very, it means very high. You can't say exorbitantly low, that's nonsensical. That the word has an actual meaning, buddy. There, can I be petty too at times? Can I be pedantic at times? Words have meanings. Anyway, that's all the time we have for our show. That last little bit of grammatical, that little tidbit for you. Jayar, thank you as always for joining us on your big old Wednesday.
Absolutely, it's couldn't care less, not could.
Also true. We'll save that for another show though. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching. Indisputable is up next. You're not gonna wanna miss it. Nina Turner will be following that up. And I apparently will be leading the first hour of the Young Turks today. Stay tuned for that and to find out who's gonna be joining me. For now though, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. I'll see you soon.